similarities. And we have a top 5. What are folks' thoughts?
I think we just have to vote between U and W, I guess. Well, many of them have 4 votes, so you're right. We have to narrow it down, I guess, don't we?
Yes. Just as a reminder or a refresher, when you pick or reach a consensus, hopefully tonight on your top 4, I will bring that back as a resolution in 2 weeks that you can vote on. And just because you're voting for the top 4 does not mean that the others don't matter. The league, and certainly Mayor Mays can chime in as the incoming president of the league, they're just trying to get a sense of where all the member cities are in terms of priorities, so and where the focus should be. And it's not easy to pick 4 out of 26 or 27 priorities.
Yeah, and one thought or approach we could take that I sort of took was, what do we expect that the legislature will do without it prodding from the cities, and what things, and maybe not put extra energy behind that, and what things the odds are incredibly low that the legislature will want to tackle next year, and maybe we don't put energy behind that because the odds are incredibly low.
Yeah, kind of with that in mind, because I sat on 3 of the committees, like for instance, property tax reform. We had a lot of conversation about that in the committee, but there was a general recognition, even from the lobbyists, that the odds of any significant action on this in this upcoming session are extremely low, and that's, and to Keith's point, spending a lot of energy there might not be productive. Just given the budget issues they're facing and everything else, the odds of them tackling any kind of property tax reform are just extremely low.
Yeah, and that's why I.
Sorry, Scott.
That's kind of why I ended up. That was on my final list, but I cut it, thinking the same, that it was likely or unlikely to be taken up, and then also thinking, well, if it is taken up, I might actually not like the result. So I cut it for that reason.
Yeah, since they're having this huge revenue issue, and the feds might step in and spend trillions of dollars to help prop up state governments and such for lost revenue, don't know. But property tax reform doesn't really hit the state coffers. It more is the county and cities coffers, and that is not going to be their priority.
I am totally willing to change my vote, absolutely, based on that information, because I had W as one of my final, and I cut it for the other. But if I would much rather put my voice behind something that's going to move forward. So right of way was like number 5 for me. So I'm totally okay with changing my vote.
I think the right of way franchise protections and the municipal broadband and municipal pole protections are important ones right now, because the broadband is a big issue that is being tackled. We just had a bill passed, that's going to provide technical funding for cities looking at providing broadband, especially in rural areas. But what else is happening with that is all the major carriers are out there trying to whittle away at our home rule and our ability to, charge for use of the right of way. So not only is the FCC doing it, we've all heard about that, have those conversations, but they're lobbying the state pretty hard. They're going after the PUCs and all of that. So that's something that I do think is going to get a lot of discussion and talk in Salem this round, given the broadband, the need to get broadband out to our rural communities and those that don't have it. So I think that's something we need to be very careful about, make sure that the league's focused on. Keith, are you hearing anything on that at the board level at the league?
A lot of there's different nuances on both, and so much we can push for at the state level, and then it's pushing it at the federal level to fix actions done at that level. So, I think it's significant, and that's why I put it on my list. If we were to keep it simple and of the things that got 4 votes, if you dropped property tax, then we have 4 items. And I think they're all good items to advocate for. Mental health service delivery, it wouldn't be revenue to cities, it would be to counties or through counties, but there's certainly need for there, and it's okay to advocate, in my opinion, for services to get that our county could use to help our community members. COVID economic recovery investments, that's definitely trying to help our business community and folks looking for work. So I think that is important. So I like those 4. If we could substitute stuff if we wanted to, but
you like the first 4 on the list that Joe sent out, so eliminate the property tax and keep the other 4?
That's what I would support.
Yeah.
And those 4 items all got 4 votes from different council members. And again, you're trying to get consensus around your top 4, knowing that there are other issues that were identified by councilors and then others that you didn't list that are still important.
Yeah.
You're still going to track.
I think the local speed setting authority, it was through committee and ready to go for the got through the House or got through the Senate. No, it got through the House and was going to go to the Senate. It was expected to pass in the Senate and signed to the governor. So I think I think that's still on everybody's, an easy list for us to hope to happen without it being in our top 4.
And based on the conversation in the committee when we talked about that, was echoed the same thing, that they're going to probably push for that one. Anyways, a lot of cities want that. I think it's important for Sherwood to give another tool for the toolkit for traffic calming committee as well, so they have more options.
So one of the suggestions that's different this upcoming long session compared to last time is you could pick these 4 and give them to the league, and they'll get thrown into the mix. You have CFM as your state lobbyist. You can identify some additional items like that one that you can have CFM focus on as our specific lobbyist on issues that are important to Sherwood, in addition to what the league's trying to do. So,
yeah, no, I would take the general consensus of, if anything got a couple votes, I'd put it on a list to CFM for us to talk with CFM on. The housing and services investment, I'm going to be interested to see what happens with that. What the talk is, just because with the big Metro bond or tax that passed and all the money that that will raise, will the state touch it because they say that Metro is taken care of and defer to other counties to try their own thing. I don't know, but putting it on our city lobbyist hands to advocate, I think is good. Certainly, we'll find out where we'll get firsthand insight from our lobbyists where the legislature is on it.
And we're already working with 3 other communities around us. We've already got $1 million committed that didn't make it through the last session because the R's walked out. That there's a still good a chance we'll get. And then we also have $5 million for planning for 99 that we've been working on with those 3 cities through the Metro bond. There's a potential to get. So there's other paths that we're driving on that.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet that the $1 million goes away. at the state level, and they'll just rely on the 5 from the potential 5 from Metro property transportation bond, because if the feds come in with a big chunk of money to backstop all the state governments, then that's one thing. But if that doesn't happen, states are in a world hurt, including Oregon.
So on reading the tea leaves, one of the reasons they haven't spent a lot of the CARES money yet is that they're hoping, there's talk on Capitol Hill that instead of giving the states more money, they'll just loosen the restrictions on the CARES fund.
Yep.
So the governor's office and even the county to a degree have been banking that money to find out what happens, to see if they can use it for anything.
Very slow drip, drip faucet of those funds leaking out of those jurisdictions, for sure.
So the mayor's suggestion, there's about 7 or 8 items that were identified by different counselors that would be an easy new list to pass on to CFM, and we can use the information from the LOC packet to share with them as well. So,
and then we'll have more city specific.
Yep.
Too.
All right, whose telephone's ringing?
Not me.
Sorry.
Fine.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to push forward something to CFN just because it was on my list only. I'd want it, to be something that we have a little more consensus about. So we probably need to
I
talk
think
to
I'd
that.
bring it back for a general discussion like this before we shared it, but that's a good starting point.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think having a work session to talk about what our goals and objectives for CFM, not only at the state level, but at the federal level, would be good.
Yep, agreed.
All right.
Anything else on this?
Our next step
I got what I needed.
is Joe will come back with a resolution on the agenda in 2 weeks to vote for those 4, unless there's any other input.
Hey, Keith.
Yeah.
What specifically does the COVID-19 economic recovery investment, what do you mean by investment? What does that mean?
I have to pull up the thing. It talks about tools to support Oregon businesses.
Okay. Programs, tools, whatever. Okay.
Yes, small business, workforce assistance, those types of things.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I got, but I thought the word investment sort of is a unusual word to use there, I thought.
Yeah.
This one's kind of all wrapped up in the CARES money and potential federal money, so it'll be really interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, because if all of a sudden the CARES money that's been awarded to Washington County, City of Portland, and the state of Oregon, if the rules change for them, it could be very interesting very quickly.
Yes.
So as Joe and staff are working diligently to submit the reports to the county so we can get some of that in short order, that's a good thing.
Is that the reimbursement money?
Yeah, the first request is due this Friday. David's on vacation this week, but he's working on getting those together with department heads. So
I'm pretty sure I saw in my email tonight the city of Wilsonville recoups COVID-19 expenditures. Did you guys see that?
No.
no. From who?
Mm-mm.
Let's see. Meeting IGA with Washington County allows Wilsonville to recoup $60,000 that was distributed by the city's economic development staff to local Washington County businesses.
So you have an item tonight on your agenda, similar IGA on your business meeting.
Right.
That would be the same thing.
Yeah.
Wilsonville is in Washington County?
A portion of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The northern portion where Costco and Target is, that's all Washington County.
Yeah. So for our consultants, there was another item on there that I didn't list in my top 4, and I don't think anyone else did, but we might want to consider having CFM talked about, and that's the digital equity and inclusion. That was talked at length about on the committee, because even in Sherwood, we had parts of the surrounding area where kids could not get internet access during this during COVID and everybody having to do homeschooling. Even kids that were giving access points through the school from the different carriers out there. So
Right.
even in a town like Sherwood, we have pockets that don't have access and can't get it even over the airwaves. So I think that's an important one, not only for Sherwood and our kids in the school system around us, but also for the rest of the state, obviously.
Yep. Good. All right.
So Mayor and Joe, before you guys continue on, Joe, what were the top four?
Oh, let me pull it back up. I'm sorry.
Item D, COVID-19. Item R, municipal broadband. Item W, right-of-way franchise fees. Item Q, mental health service delivery.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else for the work session? We have our regular meeting in 10 minutes on a separate call.
I expect in 2 weeks we might have a work session to talk a bit about an approach to look at racism and diversity in our community and what we might want to do as a city council in our community to understand what's what. Joe and I have chatted a little bit. We're going to chat some more, and everyone will chat with Joe a bit in the next week or so. But
I've chatted with the mayor and I've chatted with Councilor Browse a little bit about this. My abbreviated virtual conference this week has a very appropriate session about that in terms of how cities can respond to what's going on in the world, and I'm hoping to get some tidbits. And then also McMinnville's doing a path that I think we can kind of follow, and I want to bring those ideas, once I get them down in a more definitive manner, back to council, preferably in a work session, to talk with you and get your input. And if we can do that in 2 weeks, that's certainly a good goal to go after. We have a couple other work sessions in 2 weeks. The URA one is going to be a good hour that night. So,
yeah. So, anyways, it's on our radar, and to start have some conversation and see what would be a good approach for our community. So
that would probably be a combination of outward facing in terms of engaging with the community, and then also internally focused on our organization as well. So I think it's both, but I want to present that to the council and get your input. So
yeah.
That sounds great. Kind of along the same lines, Joe, we had the work session last week, and we talked about how our police are responding to this and their policies and procedures, et cetera. We came out of that with, I think there was kind of a list of to-dos. Where are we at with that?
So Chief Groth's on the call. Jeff, do you want to kind of update quickly kind of what you've done so far? And I think that will be another work session to bring back to council to kind of formally explain what we've done and where we're going. And then the community can also participate that, at least by viewing through it. So Chief, do you want to talk about some of the things you've done already? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, that's fine. A lot of work on policy. It's one of our 2 update periods for the year. So I just finished those updates today, and those policies have been issued, and we expect there's going to be more updates coming as a result of the changes in the Oregon legislature last week, 2 weeks ago. Anyway. So as soon as those updates come, we will approve those and release those. And then we will have, for the time being, our completed policy manual. We'll get that posted online. And we have done our little bit of research to confirm that the Police Advisory Board currently has language in their charter, for lack of a better term, or their purpose statement in the municipal code that says that they provide policy oversight for the police department, for council and the city. So that's already established. So we're going to begin that at their next meeting. And I've had a meeting today with Josh to talk about the new changes made in the state legislature so we can roll out department training on those. So I think, off the top of my head, the one piece that we've yet to formalize is how we would memorialize the expectations and intentions and desires of policing in Sherwood. We talked about having some kind of a plan, legacy plan established. So we've yet to have a chance to discuss, Joe and I and Josh or anybody else, about what that might look like and how what would be most appropriate to accomplish that. But so those are the things we've been working on.
Excellent. We talked the notion that when you want to make policy changes that we put them on a consent agenda or for council, so everyone knows that this is what's being changed, and so it's just on everybody's radar to be able to ask a question if need be, if at that meeting or offline or anything like that. So if we can put a document together for council consent agenda on policy changes that you're looking at or are doing now, that would be good, I think.
Yeah, we can. So I was checking to make sure I wasn't muted again. We can certainly do that. I can tell you that the majority of the updates that came through in this recent version had to do with establishing consistent language about protected classes and making it more consistent throughout the document. So that was the majority of the changes. But yeah, we can certainly put those together in an information sheet.
Perfect.
And again, I can follow up with Joe and you, Mayor, about how best to get that information in front of you. Again, it varies. Sometimes there's very few updates. Other times there's lots of updates, and they're kind of legally required. So it's really not something that we can, have. For example, the next updates that come as a result of the changes in legislature, those are not ones that we would look at and say, okay, do we want to go this route or not? So
Right.
sometimes we do have that flexibility.
Yeah, and I think the way we're thinking about it is it's just an oversight. It just shows the community that we're paying attention to this stuff and reviewing it. But you're right. There's all kinds of stuff we passed in the community development code that is a requirement for the state that we really don't have a choice to do, but we still run it through a process.
Yeah, and I view it more, one, transparency.
Yep.
So as we change policies that affect police services, we're doing it in a more transparent way, and you're, as an elected body, aware of those changes. And it's just shifting out of how we've done things in the past. And that really, I think, is going to become the norm. So the other thing that Jeff and I have not had a chance to talk about is the idea of bringing back language, maybe an ordinance that requires, if the council feels this way, that we should always be an accredited police department.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff and I have talked about, if there's certain things that we want to set for the future, so it doesn't matter who the city manager may or may not be, or the police chief. If it's important to kind of lay those out for the future, we need to do that now. And those are relatively easy, whether it's holding ourselves to the CIS best practices review and accreditation and those kind of things, and move pretty quickly on those.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting after that work session, reading the dialogue online, and people were surprised so very few departments were accredited.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I suspect and hope that it's more of they don't want to deal with the paperwork process than the fact that they're not necessarily upholding all the same requirements. But that's just a hope. But for me, I don't want to meet the minimum standard. I want to go above and beyond to
Exactly.
the fullest extent that's practicable.
I couldn't agree more. And the only thing I would add, Joe and Chief, is extend that to other things that maybe don't fall under accreditation, don't fall under a regulation or rule, but has had a huge impact on the quality of our policing. Like, for instance, your policy around the psychological review of recruit, and that if the psychologist says no, that's a no. If we don't get in that trap of, it's so-and-so's brother-in-law or something like that. So, what are those other things that we're doing that you think really contribute to kind of fall outside those standards that we should be considering as policy?
Awesome. All right, we're hitting that hour, so let's get everybody a quick break before we have a city council meeting in 3 minutes.
Thank you, everyone. See you in a couple minutes.
For our regular city council meeting for July 7th, 2020. Would everyone please state the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
To the
to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the
and to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
Nation,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
Indivisible.
indivisible,
liberty,
with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
excellent. Next time we'll remember another cute video, maybe.
That was better than before.
Yeah, I agree. Practice.
Practice.
And we're only going to be doing this till the end of the year.
You just need to get the karaoke version of that so the words are dancing on the screen.
Very
Roll call, Sylvia.
Mayor Mays,
Here.
Council President Rosner,
here.
Councilor Browse,
here,
Councilor Young,
Here,
Councilor Griffin,
Here,
Councilor Scott,
Here.
and Councilor Garland is absent.
Yeah, he's excused. Hope he feels better. We have approval of agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Thank you, council. We have 4 items on our consent agenda this evening. Item A is approval of the June 16th, 2020 City Council meeting minutes. Item B is approval of the June 23rd City Council meeting minutes. Item C is Resolution 2020-041, authorizing an amendment to the existing 3J Consulting Inc. contract for the 2040, not the 2040, but the 2040 comprehensive plan update. And then item D is Resolution 2020-042, approving intergovernmental agreement between Washington County and the City of Sherwood for reimbursement program and small business assistance.
I move consent.
Second,
Renee moved it, seconded by Kim. Discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve consent as presented, say aye.
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 Opposed? Council. Next is citizen comments. Sylvia, do we have any citizen comments? I know we had one letter for a public hearing, but any citizen?
That's correct, Mayor. Other than that one, I do not have any.
Awesome. Thank you, Sylvia. So we'll move on to public hearings. 2 items under public hearings, a first and a second reading of ordinances. Sylvia?
So the Sherwood City Council will hold public hearings this evening to hear testimony on 2 different ordinances. Ordinance 2020-005, amending sections of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code as it relates to the regulation of signs. This is the second reading on this ordinance. And Ordinance 2020-006, amending sections of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code to allow for hospitality and lodging uses within the light industrial zone with special standards. This is the first reading on this item. Mayor and council, staff did receive written comments, I believe, for the first ordinance 005, and Erica will present those during her staff report. So at this time, we'll have Erica's staff report, questions, if any, by the city council for staff, and then we will introduce those written comments. Other than that, Mayor and council, I have no other items to state other than for the ordinance 2020-005 for the second reading. I do have a little sentence here that states this is a second reading before the council on this item. The decision may be made by the council at the close of this hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain. If the matter is continued to a time and date certain, this is the only notice of that date you will receive. Again, that is for ordinance number 005.
Thank you, Sylvia. Erica, are you with us?
I am. So let me go ahead here and share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, you have before you some proposed sign code amendments. A detailed presentation about the amendments was given at the last council meeting, so tonight I'm going to be brief, but I just want to go over 2 of the major changes to the code. The first being that now there are definitions to distinguish between what is known as a flag and what is known as a flag sign, which is often referred to as a feather sign. There are proposed standards to regulate the use of feather signs. We looked at the number of signs allowed on a parcel, where they can be located on a parcel, and what the height could be. The proposed language allows these feather type of signs to be in commercial and industrial zoned areas, and treats feather signs like a banner sign, which are temporary in nature and may only be permitted for a maximum of 90 days. Secondly, another major change to the code language is to allow wall signs in the IP zone with certain standards. This allows flexibility for wall signs if a property is adjacent to a collector or an arterial roadway, and if the building is set back 100 feet from the right-of-way. So a little bit about our public engagement. Planning Commission did hold work sessions in the fall of 2019, and also a public hearing in March earlier this year. We had a project webpage that was created in early February about the proposed amendments. We also proposed amendments to the Sherwood Chamber of Commerce, so they could have so they could send out the information to their distribution list. We did receive 2 written testimonies. One was included in your packet of information, and that was from the Portland Metropolitan Association of Realtors. And most recently today, we received testimony from the Sherwood Chamber of Commerce. So just our recommendations for you this evening. We recognize that we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and it's having impacts to local businesses. And with that, staff has developed the following options for council to consider this evening. First is council can conduct the second reading as presented, and a motion to adopt the ordinance as presented would mean that the proposed amendments would take effect after 30 days. And you can conduct the second reading tonight and amend the ordinance to provide for a later effective date. This would allow time for educational outreach on the new standards prior to an effective date given. Or you can continue this public hearing to a date certain. And this would allow the city to assess COVID-19 and the pandemic situation at that time. It would also provide additional opportunity for public input and allow time for any additional consideration that council may have. Council could take this opportunity to provide additional direction to staff regarding any potential changes to the ordinance language prior to the hearing being continued. And that is the end of my staff report.
Thanks,
I
Eric.
can answer any questions.
The letter we got from the chamber essentially is asking for us to delay because of COVID-19. My personal, I would have two suggestions. One, ask staff to put together some words that help with the other letter that we received from the realtors about their A-frame corner signs that they do temporarily on weekends, and that they have to make a best effort to get permission before they put up on a corner right away versus requiring them to get permission. People are on vacation, you know, as long as a best effort, I think, is something that I'd like the council to consider. And then secondly, if council agrees, I would move we continue this second reading to the October, what did you say? What was the date? October 17th?
It was November 17th.
November 17th. November 17th meeting.
I would agree with that myself. I think it's important that we don't create any ambiguity with our businesses right now by deferring it. There's no question of when does this take effect or any of those types of issues for our businesses. And I think the signs are an important part of their business right now, and trying to redirect people. People are trying, take out versus dine in, all those types of issues that they're dealing with. I think the signs are important. We shouldn't be messing with that right now, for lack of a better term. I did have one question, Erica. In the last meeting, we talked about making the standards consistent across commercial and industrial zones. Is that
That's in there.
That's in there.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
So
I hope that we would be at phase 2 now, and we're not at phase 2. With this
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question, and then I have just a statement. My question is, why are we focusing so much on these feather signs? And my statement would be is, I don't think we should be doing anything right now that's going to affect the businesses being able to advertise. So whether it's postponing to November 15th or on down the road, that would be my preference. But why are we focusing so much on the feather signs?
Well, the topic came up because the code prohibits signs, but Josh's and has for 18 years, but Josh's interpretation says that there was some vagueness to it, and so it came up over a year ago.
Yeah.
To just get it cleaned up, and then it takes time to get through the process.
And we started down this prior to COVID hitting us.
Well, we started down it with a prior council.
Yeah,
Well,
right. Even that is
This was,
We started the yeah.
yes, so it's kind of just been rehashed, but
out there.
I too would be in favor of just postponing the second reading till November, not impacting our businesses in any way. I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about the letter from the realtors and the impact on them with their A-frames, because they just kind of put them on the corners usually and guide people to wherever their open house is, and the impact this has on that.
Yeah, from the letter, and between now and then we'll have plenty of time to look at that specific language and an alternative, but asks that they get the permission of the property owner before putting it in the right of way for a weekend, and best effort is what the current language says, is my understanding. So we can get that out. If we agree to continue this until late November, then there's plenty of time to look at that better.
Okay.
Doug has a.
Thank you. First, I have a question regarding the realtor signs and their concerns. Are we proposing any changes that impact those types of signs?
Yeah. So it would be good. Yeah. There's little tweaks that came from the Planning Commission that are also in this, either staff driven or Planning Commission.
Erica, can you touch on what specific changes would impact the A-frame signs that they're worried about?
So are you speaking in regards to the letter that was the testimony that was sent from the realtors?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So they're concerned. Our current language in the code says that you need to seek the best effort from the property owner to put that A-frame out on the sidewalk.
Okay.
The current code language tweaks that language just a little bit.
The proposed code language.
The proposed code language, and says you need to have permission from the property owner to put that A-frame on the sidewalk, and that's because, and Josh may want to speak to this too. When you put something in the right of way, it could have direct impacts to pedestrians. They could trip and fall. It poses a liability.
No, I understand now. It's good to have that specific knowledge. So it definitely is a significant, I can see that why they would be concerned with that language change, because it can be quite difficult to get such permission ahead of time. So I understand that. So yeah, I would definitely be in favor of re-examining that change. My next comment is really around the what are we calling them? Not flag signs, the
Feather signs.
Feather signs, which, I think we can refer back to my previous statements last meeting. But I guess I'm not opposed to a delay, but I'm also, to me, I feel like the 90-day with permitting requirement is overly burdensome. And if it hurts a business now, it's still going to be hurting them 6 months from now or 9 months from now for 12 months from now. So if our concern is, accommodating businesses and not wanting to hurt our small businesses, that doesn't seem to be consistent to me. So I'll leave it at that.
Great. Anything else? If not, does someone want to make a motion to continue this to the November 17th meeting?
I make a motion to continue this to the November 17th meeting.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion to continue ordinance 2020-005 to the November 17th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Doug was a nay? That's
Correct.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, council. Item B, ordinance 2020-006, first reading. Erica.
Great. So this is the first reading of ordinance 2020-006, and this proposes text amendments to the industrial land use district within the Sherwood zoning and community development code. Specifically, this proposal allows for hospitality and lodging uses with a conditional use permit within the zone, and also allows for hotels to be developed with special standard criteria. So how did we get here? Just a little history and context. So in 2018, the city received a transportation growth management grant to study land use and transportation access issues north of Highway 99 between Roy Rogers and Langer Farms Parkway. So an outcome of this study suggested that the northeast section of the site area would have the highest and best use for residential, hotel, and office uses. There have been interested property owners within this area that have had an intent for hotel uses within this light industrial zone, because that area is zoned light industrial. And hotel uses in close proximity to industrial uses can be compatible. And they're also convenient to have close by to industrial users and their employers. So this slide really talks about, let's see here if we can get it all on the screen for you. Talks about the proposed language in the code. So really this proposal allows for hotels with an approved conditional use permit. As proposed, there are a few special standards that hotel development would need to meet, and those include hotels within this zone must be sited within a quarter mile from the general commercial or retail commercial zones. The development of hotels would need to conform with the commercial design review matrix. This would look at the architectural design as well as building orientation. And thirdly, the hotel would need to provide a minimum of 200 square feet of floor area for a conference or a meeting room. This standard can provide a benefit to employers in this zone and to the hotel guests. And staff, we surveyed area hotels, and we also spoke to hotel companies about meeting room spaces for guests. And the 200 square foot minimum of floor area for this space seemed adequate. And that's why it was proposed. Let's see here. So this is the map that I wanted to show, and this shows the parcels that are within a quarter mile that are zoned light industrial, that are in a quarter mile of the general commercial and retail commercial zone. So the approval criteria, we have demonstrated that there is a community need for this type of use. And this type of use is consistent with the current plan policies within the comprehensive plan, and it's demonstrated in the staff report. We haven't had any public comments received thus far on the proposed amendments. And so our staff recommendation this evening is to hold the first hearing of Ordinance 2020-006, amending sections of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code to allow for hospitality and lodging uses within the light industrial zone with special standards. And with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Great. First, Erica, it is a public hearing. We do not receive any comments on this first reading, so just for that to be clear, so the public hearing portion of this is closed. Questions of Erica from council or comments?
Erica, I know there at Planning Commission last month when this was there was some good discussion raised with some particular concerns about this ordinance. Can you kind of detail that for the council, or at least give an overview of that for the council?
Yeah, so their concerns had to do with, we're in the middle of updating our comprehensive plan now. And when we are done with our update early next year, would a hotel type of use be compatible in the light industrial zone with our new policies and guidance from our comp plan? That was primarily their major concern.
Yeah, so my recollection is it wasn't necessarily an outright opposition, more around the timing of this in relation to the timing of the comp plan update, maybe, questionable or problematic or whatever. But they were fully I'm illustrating this for council's sake because they weren't there and I was, and so I want to make sure everyone
Right.
understands that conversation happened. So it wasn't necessarily an opposition, and I think the vote passed
Unanimously.
unanimously.
Yeah, I was
anyway.
gonna
It wasn't an
chime-
opposition. It was more of a, hey, is the timing of this, appropriate, considering, it may come in conflict with the insights that are coming through our comp plan update. But ultimately, when they passed the vote, they were, their sentiment was, at the end of the day, we defer to council and it's council's decision. But I just wanted to make everyone on the council aware that conversation did take place.
Awesome. Thank you, Counselor. Other comments or questions?
This, Tim, I'd just comment a little bit on that. I mean, one of my favorite expressions is, luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. And I agree that there's potentially, we're kind of out of step with our comp plan update. But if we have developers or landowners that are looking to do something now or in the near future and not wait for that, I'd rather be prepared for that than have those opportunities come up and we can't do it because of a zoning issue. And especially given our focus on economic development for the city coming out of our visioning with the council.
Completely agree.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Erica. We will see this again in 2 weeks.
Yes.
For the second reading.
Yes, thank you very much, Erica.
Yeah, very cool.
Thank you.
All right. So that is our second and final public hearing for the evening. And moving on to city manager report. Joe?
Mayor and council, I have a couple items, but I'm going to start with Chief Growth. I'm going to turn it over to him. He wanted to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in Portland on a nightly basis, and we've gotten some concerns from citizens about could some of that activity come to Sherwood, and are we prepared for that? So I wanted to let Chief Growth talk a little bit about that perspective.
Thanks, Joe. And Mr. Mayor, you were involved in the email dialogue as well, but the concern came through email, as Joe stated. And so we just thought it'd be good to basically share what I shared with the resident via email, and that is that they can be assured that their police department is well staffed and prepared for any type of event that might, happen in the city. We have multiple plans in place to deal with these kinds of things, and we'll certainly activate those plans at the first indication of any trouble. Now, that being said, I have absolutely no reason at all, no concern to think, to think that we will have any trouble like what we see going on in other places in town. But if it were to show up, it would certainly be addressed immediately. So we stand ready to keep the community safe. So that's the message that we shared with the resident, and we want to share with you all and the rest of the community that may be watching tonight. So,
Thanks, Chief. Yeah, it's just important to share that. And if somebody, is at home and watching the local news every day, and it's all Portland centric, you could be nervous, and so that's important for the chief to share that. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief, and Mayor Mays. A couple other things, not just for the council, but more for the public. I wanted to let folks know every summer in July and August, we do slurry seal, which is road maintenance of roads in town. Most of those roads quite often are in residential neighborhoods and have impacts. But in looking ahead and talking with Craig Sheldon later this month, target July 27th, 28th, Sherwood Boulevard, which is a main thoroughfare from 3rd Street to Highway 99, is on the list of roads to be maintained. So we will do our normal door hanging and social media and get the word out to folks, but that's a major travel through thoroughfare. Actually, many of you travel that street, I know, on a daily basis, and there'll be some temporary closures and some other things as we do that road later this month. So more to come, but Craig thought it would be helpful to kind of get the word out early that that's a road that is scheduled to be repaired later this month. So I don't know if there's any questions about that.
Safe to say that they'll be doing it in sections so that people don't get landlocked in their neighborhood and all that good stuff.
I believe that's the case. Craig, you're on the call. Is that correct? You may have stepped away. I believe that's the case, Mayor Mays.
Yeah, I'm sure it is too. But so folks that are watching.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Did you hear the question, Craig?
Yeah, I just was muted. I forgot it was on. It's going to be done in 2 phases is the plan. One's from Highway 99 to about 12th or 10th Street, and then from the next day will be from that area down to 3rd Street. So it'll be done in 2 days, and that be able to get out on Meineke to Highway 99 during those times.
And the people have to be off of, when the slurry seal is applied, Craig, people have to stay off of it for 24 hours or 18 hours, or what's the deal?
No, they'll probably put it down, and we try to have everything opened up by 5 o'clock at night. So usually, depending on the weather, if it's warm, it's usually 4 or 5 hours after it's applied.
Wow.
But as we go through every year, and council knows this, people get anxious and jump the gun, and then they create tire tracks in the slurry, and then we have to have the contractor come back out a month later and fix and repair it. So I guess the advice or request is when the street's closed, please stay off of it. There's a reason for those signs.
And do we put anything heavier to help block, or something for that period of time? Park a couple of trucks blocking it, I'm just thinking out loud, but it's not those main roads. I mean, all of it's important. We don't want people to drive on the slurry seal work ever early, but
we could have the mayor stand there with the sign.
Tell me when and where.
The big old feather sign.
I'll try to help.
I just have a comment on this, and just kudos to our public works team. These slurry seals are important. There's a reason when you drive around our community, there's not a lot of potholes and problems with our roads and infrastructure. compared to driving around some of the other communities around here, and it's because we stay on top of it. And if you don't stay on top of it, you end up having to replace the asphalt altogether and redo it. So this is smart, worthy investment.
Hey, I'll volunteer a friend's RV to block a road.
That's a good idea.
Love the creativity. So
I had that one coming.
So that was one item I wanted just to give a heads up on. The second is we're going to be promoting this through various channels. We have openings on a variety of boards and commissions. Parks and Rec, the Cultural Arts Committee, and Library Advisory Board all have vacancies. You may recall we're kind of on a June 30th ending date for terms now, so there's a lot more vacancies than normal, and we're going to be doing some advertising and encouraging folks to get involved. So if you want to get on one of the city's boards and commissions, now's a good time in the next few weeks to apply to serve on one of those boards. So just wanted to put a plug in for that.
Excellent.
That's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions for Joe? Awesome. Was the weekend, fourth weekend, generally quiet from a bad actor standpoint? Or were we?
So, Chief Groth, I asked you that question Monday morning. So,
Yes, and I actually have more better information than I did Monday morning. I have more and better information. So it was actually a pretty busy weekend. We were staffed fairly well, but we ended up with a multitude of fireworks calls. The sense I'm getting is that it was maybe a little bit louder than normal, and I see a lot of head nods. So we also had a drunk driver that tied an officer up for a while, and then we had what we refer to as an AVL call, which is a high priority multiple officer call that tied up one of our officers for a while too. So we felt like we were staffed pretty well, but it was just turned out to be a busy night. And so the fireworks calls were not, we weren't able to pay as much proactive activity as we have in the past. We did, there was one individual that was cited for illegal fireworks. And other than that, it was just, as I said, just kind of a busy weekend. So we're already having conversations about maybe needing to step it up a little bit again next year. I know this was a unique year because there was no place for folks to go, but there was a lot of pleas from differing government officials in light of COVID-19 to just keep it calm. And so I don't know, maybe everybody stayed home and bought more fireworks. I don't know what the reason was, but anyway, so it was a fairly busy weekend.
Thanks, Jeff. It seemed like there must have been like some sale in Washington State for those M80s or something, because it seemed like there was some explosions going off more than normal. But yeah, but no injuries that we're aware of people.
No, there was no injuries. We did recover what turned out to be a pipe bomb. It was a pretty old one that somebody found in their yard. And we ended up having that rendered useless by the explosives disposal unit. So, yeah, it was just one of those years. Like I said, and as you know, there's a few hours of peak time where most of the firework activity takes place, and it doesn't take but one or two incidents during that time to really kind of change the dynamics of what the officers are able to do. So I think we'll try to staff up some extra Dewey patrols next year and some extra firework patrols next year, and just try to help everybody get back in line, as it were.
Did we have extra staff on over the weekend, or is it just our normal?
Well, it's our normal, but realize that we position our overlap period to be during the busy time. So as it turned out, on Saturday night, both Friday night and Saturday night during those peak hours, we had, I think, 4 or 5 officers on during the overlap. So then after 11 o'clock, half of them go home, and that's when things start to die off anyway. So, or certainly the volume goes way down. It still may be loud, but there'll a lot less. The numbers are a lot less. So,
Right.
Thanks, Chief.
Hey, I had a question for Joe.
Yes.
Are we on, not we, is the county and all that on time with the Sunset 99, all that mess?
So they're about 3 weeks behind. Their latest date to reopen the street where it's closed is July 23rd. They had some delays in doing that, but it will be done all prior. Every indication is it'll be done in plenty of time for the new high school to open in September, assuming the new high school opens in September. So there have been some short delays. And another issue that we saw some social media questions over the weekend, and I got some questions on the Sunset side. There were some concerns about some of the
the cones and how they were set up.
and whether it was really clear if you're turning left off 99 on the Sunset. It wasn't as clear as it could be. I reached out to Russ Knoble at the county, and they've made some adjustments, and they put some additional signage out to try to address that. I think everybody involved with this project or not involved with the project will be very happy when it's finally done, and we're almost done.
Oh, yes.
And we'll have those left turn lanes on the 99 from both directions, and it'll be a much safer intersection going forward. So,
Nice.
And Joe, those will be dedicated left-hand turns, meaning you don't have to find a hole in the incoming traffic.
correct. With
Yay.
with arrows that say go left safely.
We only needed that 10 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Other questions for Joe? Great. Council announcements. Anyone like to lead us off?
I will. I don't really have too much. It's kind of a couple months off from C2BG meetings. We haven't had any YMCA Board of Managers meetings either, but the Y does sound like it's going well with their opening and whatnot. But I just wanted to give a shout out to all of the city staff and Public Works, especially for all their continuous going back out to the parks and putting up tapes to have it torn down, to put back the tape up. And I know families are just frustrated because they want to get out on those playgrounds and whatnot, and they see people playing and whatnot, but we just aren't quite in phase 2 yet. But that's just a lot of work for our Public Works to go out and continually put the caution tape back up and put signs back up only to have them tore down. So I just acknowledge all the work that they're doing and keeping everything running as well as all the other departments. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Kim.
I'll second that.
Doug, anything?
A couple quick things. First of all, I know Joe mentioned openings on boards and commissions. There are currently 2 openings on the Planning Commission. However, I do think the deadline to apply for those has already passed. But I did want to call that out, that there are 2 currently openings. We have 2 candidates that we will be interviewing soon and potentially filling those 2 openings. But, there's always the possibility that another opening could become available. So I would always recommend keeping an eye out for those postings when they come up. There was a joint work session between the Parks Board and Planning Commission a week or so ago. And the subject of that was the Parks Master Plan update. That's I think coming fairly close to completing. So I think that was a really good session. I don't think that's available online, unfortunately, but definitely reach out to the links and email lists to get more information about that. Finally, they're currently underway as part of the 2040 master plan, and you can look at sherwood2040.org to get all of the information. And out there's currently we're entering have entered the the housing block of that master plan update, and that is definitely one of the thing that I think a lot of stakeholders and a lot of people are interested in. So I would encourage you to get Sherwood2040.org and check out the information there. We're doing, I think that the consultant and staff is doing a lot of stakeholder interviews. So I know everyone on council and planning commission, I think, is being interviewed. There's also a lot of community stakeholder groups and individuals being interviewed. And there's a lot of other outreach just from regular citizens and anyone who's interested. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to get involved there. There will be surveys as well coming up that will give everyone a chance to input their voice. I know the Parks survey, maybe had 500 or 600 responses, a really, really good response rate. And there's a lot of good information in there. And so we're hoping that we can hit similar numbers or maybe even better on the housing survey. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. Thank you.
So, Councilor Scott, just a quick item, that Parks and Planning Commission work session is available on the YouTube page, so people can still watch that.
Oh, excellent. Thanks for that update.
Great. Russell?
Let's see. So Doug talked about the Parks Master Plan. We talked about that on Monday night at the Parks Board meeting briefly, just that it's moving along, as Doug said. Jason Waters came, gave us an update on the Cedar Creek Trail. All of the right-of-way negotiations have completed except for one, and he thinks that's pretty close, and they might start construction of that multi-million-dollar project in December. I have to wait until the nesting season is over. There are lots of federal requirements because there's federal money involved. So I think he said December is when they're going to start that. And then also, I thought I heard, is Kristen on the call? I don't see her. I thought I heard that the Sherwood School District announced that they would like to start scheduling their own facilities again.
Ooh, that's a big conversation.
I'm almost positive Kristen brought that up at the Parks Board meeting. Anybody?
I have heard that also.
Yeah, I think she's mentioned that on Monday night. And they guess they have an app. They're going to do, I guess, some kind of a.
There is no agreement for them to do anything. It's working. Staff is working through.
Okay.
Options and ideas, but we have a 20-year arrangement of jointly scheduling those fields and maintaining those fields to the joint benefit, because the city invested millions of dollars on school district property to make them better, and we help maintain them so that they're the benefit of all in the community, both young and old, and not just a limited group. So staff are in conversations.
Because however that moves along, I would love for the council to be continually updated on that issue.
Yeah. The challenge is if you are scheduling everything citywide, all fields through one source, like we have for 20 years.
Lance.
A lot of the challenges get worked through in a fair and equitable way. And if we go back to the old days, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Right, with our IGA, we currently do the landscaping for those fields, and we split the water 50-50. And so if they begin scheduling them and reaping all the revenues, where's the benefit to us as far as doing the landscaping and the water portion? Anyways, it's just the IGAs that need to be.
You're right. Because of a lot of stuff going on with both organizations, there's this pandemic, there's some school construction, there's businesses and residents that are having challenges that we're trying to help. Both staffs need to get together and talk.
I agree.
And Russell, this is Tim. I've been in contact with some of the school board members on this. We're working through it. Joe and Josh and I have talked about it at length, and we're trying to get that resolved. But I think several of you made the point. It's been a mutually beneficial arrangement. I dug up over $2.7 million in capital investments we've made to those fields over the years for the joint use of the community, and we just need to continue with that. And And if you look at the numbers, it actually saves the school district money. And given the crunch that they're under, that's a good thing. So,
and my initial reaction was, kind of what Mayor Mays talked about. It seems like it has really been a great system, and so many people, so many organizations have had access to those fields. And our fields, people come to our fields and they comment how wonderful they are compared to the ones in West Lynn and the ones over in Tigard or the ones in parts of Beaverton. It's such a community asset. I would hate to have that. So I absolutely encourage staff to stay on that. I know that the mayor's probably that's in his radar immediately. So, but I just perked my ears up on Monday night. So and I'm not throwing Kristen under the bus, but it's I got the impression it was like a done deal. So I'm happy.
It is absolutely not a done deal.
Good.
No, yeah, the email was a surprise to all of us because we don't even have an IGA agreed to, even at the staff level at this point.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Joe, can you clarify? Did the sports teams, the local sports teams, get some notice that they are to schedule through the school district?
Yeah, they got a notice last week.
That was the email that went out.
Yeah.
And that's what
Okay.
Kristen was sharing last night with the Parks and Rec. Not necessarily stating an opinion about it, just stating a fact. You may see this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the
Okay.
mayor's right. We're working on that issue, and it's bigger than just scheduling. It's all wrapped up with a 20-year arrangement and landscaping and other kind of costs. So you'll see stuff soon. I don't have a resolution yet to the issue.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. That's all I got.
Renee?
Let's see. Senior Advisory Committee will actually meet in August, so not meeting this month. The library has a few updates. They continue to hold pickup services, and they're going really well. They're getting ready to expand them countywide, so countywide holds. And then they've started giving away free books to kids, teens, and adults for summer reading. And just today gave away 117 books. They're also doing grab-and-go STEM and craft kits for kids and teens. So there's 2 different times and hours for giveaways. Tuesdays from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the Pine Street side of the library. And then on Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the City Hall parking lot during curbside pickup. And if you want any more details, you go to sherwoodoregon.gov/library. That's all I have.
Thanks, Renee. Tim?
It's been quiet. We haven't had a school board meeting since the last time we met. I was going to bring up the issue of the IGA with the sports fields, but we already covered that. But that's been front and center for me, working with the school board on that particular issue and making sure everyone is just aware of the kind of the facts and the history and the length of time that we've been in that agreement, because there's a lot of new people, so I don't think everyone was aware of that. So we've been working through that.
I mean, who was here in the 90s and remembers what the Archer, Glenn, Hopkins, SMS, high school,
the lights at the baseball field, the lights at the football field, the turf at the baseball fields and the high school, and those are all investments the cities have made in those properties.
Yep. All right. I didn't make too many notes. I hope everyone did have a safe 4th of July weekend, and hope everyone continues to listen to, best practices during this pandemic. We were hoping that we would be in phase 2 of reopening with this COVID-19. We knew numbers were going to increase of positive tests, and they are, in some cases, much more than folks thought in different parts of the state. I would be surprised if we go to phase 2 the end of this week. But we'll see. But please wear masks. Please still do social distancing, so that we keep it reasonably contained, until we have therapies that can help folks that catch it that are at risk. So think of others. It's not, think of others. You might be super healthy and you could still have problems. So,
Well said.
what we have done, I think, has been a great success, helping businesses be creative with what is possible. And I know families and individuals and businesses that folks that can work from home are continuing to work from home. Councilor Scott mentioned that that's what he does, and I do. I go to an empty office when I go to my office, and an almost completely empty building. But I did participate in the revised Woodhaven neighborhood 4th of July parade on Saturday that the homeowner association puts on. Everyone drove in their cars to be safe. Candy was not tossed, which the folks that stood on the sidelines were, I think, with few exceptions, being smart with how they behaved with masks or social distancing, staying with families. But there were some kids with bags hoping to get candy, and I know none came out of the mayor's truck or the fire engine's truck, unfortunately, for this year. But that's all I got. Anything else for the good of the collective?
Short meeting.
Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.
See you later.
Thank you, everybody.